Before I say a single word about what happened in my house last Monday, I need you to understand something that took me 6 decades of war to learn. And if you stay until the very end, I will hand you the one weapon I used to turn the most dangerous moment of my life into a complete and irreversible victory over every single person who tried to bury me alive. But if you leave before I finish, you will walk right back into the trap that is already set for you, and you will not see it coming until they are dividing your things in a parking lot. Now sit down and pay attention, because I am only going to say this once. I am 80 years old. I have buried a husband, 2 sisters, and more illusions than most people ever have the courage to build. I built my wealth one humiliation at a time, in rooms where men who looked nothing like me decided whether I was worth a seat at the table. I clawed my way through a system that was designed from the foundation up to make sure a woman with my skin would never accumulate enough power to be dangerous. And yet here I sit, in a house that I own outright, in a city that once told my grandmother she could not drink from its fountains, with a portfolio that would make the men who denied her a glass of water choke on their own mediocrity. I did not survive all of that, to be taken down by the people who share my last name. Last Monday it rained, that gray, heavy kind of rain that makes the house feel smaller and the silence feel louder. I was in my living room, the one with the Magno table my late husband and I shipped from Salvador, when we were still young enough to believe that beautiful things could just be beautiful without someone trying to appraise them. My daughter-in-law, Eleanor, had been over the day before, buzzing around my kitchen like she always does, performing her little theater of concern, asking if I had taken my supplements, if the housekeeper was coming, if I needed anything from the store. She left her iPad on my table. Now Eleanor does not forget things. Eleanor tracks the expiration dates of condiments in her refrigerator. Eleanor has a color-coded spreadsheet for her children's dental appointments through the year 2031. That woman does not forget a device that costs more than some people's rent. But I am 80, and the world assumes that 80 means stupid, so I was supposed to just set it aside and wait for her to retrieve it like a good, compliant old woman. Instead, I picked it up. The screen was unlocked, and right there, on the home screen, open and unminimized, was a drafted email to a premium funeral service provider with an itemized quote for my burial, my cremation options, a projected timeline for express probate filing, and a commission estimate from an auction house for the liquidation of my art collection. The date on that draft was exactly 48 hours after I made the worst tactical error of the last 20 years of my life. 2 nights before that rainy Monday, I sat at my own dinner table and let my mouth outrun my discipline. My eldest son, Arthur Jr., 58 years old, and still hemorrhaging money into startups that evaporate like spit on a hot sidewalk, was doing what he does best, which is complaining. The interest rates on his commercial mortgages were eating him alive, he said. He could not refinance, he said. The market was punishing him, he said. And I, in a moment of maternal weakness that I will regret until the soil covers me, told him that the annual yield from just one of my smallest Swiss dividend funds would cover his entire debt load 10 times over in a single calendar year. I said it to comfort him. I said it because I am his mother. And the second those numbers left my lips, I watched his eyes change. I watched the pupils of my own son dilate like a predator locking onto a wounded animal. And next to him, Eleanor, who had been pretending to arrange dessert plates, went perfectly still. Not the stillness of surprise, the stillness of calculation. I had given them the number, and the number had turned me from their mother into their obstacle. Now I need you to understand the first truth that will save your life if you let it. The most dangerous thing you can do as a person with wealth is to let the people closest to you know the exact size of it. I do not care if it is your child, your spouse, your sibling, your best friend of 40 years. The moment they can attach a specific number to your name, they begin to do math that does not include your heartbeat. You become a figure on a spreadsheet. You become a timeline. You become a problem that resolves itself the moment you stop breathing. And if you are black, if you are old, and if you are a woman, that math gets done faster because the system has already decided that you are not supposed to have what you have. And everyone around you, including your own blood, has absorbed that message whether they admit it or not. That iPad was not forgotten. It was a test, or it was carelessness born from the arrogance of someone who believes that an 80-year-old black woman cannot operate a touchscreen. Either way, it told me everything. The funeral quote included line items for the rapid liquidation of my home in Atlanta, the one I bought in 1987 when the neighborhood was considered too black for investment, and which is now worth more than Arthur Jr.'s entire failed portfolio. It included an estimate for my collection of African American art, pieces I have been acquiring since 1972, works by artists whose names Eleanor cannot pronounce, and whose value she only understands in resale terms. They had been busy, they had been organized, and they had been fast. 48 hours. That is how long it took my own family to go from hearing a number at dinner to pricing my coffin. But I did not cry. I need you to hear that. I did not shed one tear. I took a screenshot, uploaded it to an encrypted cloud server that no one in my family knows exists, placed the iPad back at the exact angle I found it, and sat in my chair to finish my tea. Because tears are a luxury for people who have not been trained by this world to expect betrayal. And the system trained me young. It trained me when I was 12 years old, and a bank officer told my father, a man with a master's degree in engineering, that his signature was insufficient for a home loan and that he would need a white co-signer. It trained me when I was 26 and a law firm offered me a salary 30% below my white colleagues for identical work and told me I should be grateful for the opportunity. It trained me every single year of my life, and the lesson was always the same. Nobody is coming to protect you. Not the institutions, not the courts, and certainly not the people who call you Mama. 3 days after my discovery, Arthur Jr. showed up at my front door without calling first. He was not alone. He brought a man named Dr. Aris Thorne, a concierge geriatrician with a soft voice and an expensive suit, and the particular kind of smile that white men in positions of clinical authority use when they want you to feel safe while they dismantle your autonomy. Arthur Jr. called it a friendly routine checkup in my own living room, without my request or my consent. Dr. Thorne sat across from me and began asking me what day of the week it was, whether I could count backwards from 100 by sevens, whether I remembered my banking passwords. He was not assessing my health. He was building a case, because in this country, the fastest way to take control of an elderly person's money is to get a medical professional to sign a piece of paper suggesting that the elderly person can no longer manage it. And if that elderly person is black, the threshold for that diagnosis drops through the floor. The medical system has spent centuries telling us that our bodies fail faster, our minds deteriorate sooner, that we are biologically predisposed to fragility. They call it weathering, the accumulated erosion of health caused by a lifetime of navigating racism. But then they use that very erosion as evidence that we cannot be trusted with our own decisions. It is a perfect closed loop of institutional violence, and my son was trying to use it against me with a hired physician and a clipboard. If you are still here, if you are still listening, then you are not one of the ones who will be blindsided. But before I show you how I locked every single one of them out of my life and my legacy, you need to understand the lie they have been telling you your entire life. The lie is that family loyalty is automatic. The lie is that the people who share your blood share your interests. The lie is that love and inheritance exist in the same sentence without a knife between them. I am living proof that they do not. 2 days after Dr. Thorne's little performance in my living room, Eleanor called me. Her voice was dripping with that particular brand of manufactured sweetness that women use when they want something from you, but need you to believe it was your idea. She suggested that I sign a revocable living trust, naming Arthur Jr. as immediate co-manager of my assets. She framed it as a gift to me, a way to spare me the stress of probate, a kindness, a relief. What she was actually doing was attempting to get the keys to my vault while I was still alive to watch them empty it. A living trust with Arthur Jr. as co-manager would have given him signature authority over accounts he has no right to touch. It would have allowed him to move money, restructure investments, and redirect dividends while I sat in my own chair and watched my empire dissolve under the pretense of family cooperation. I said I would think about it, and then I moved in complete silence. I flew to the Mayo Clinic. I did not tell a single soul. I submitted myself to a full battery of neurological and cognitive testing administered by 3 independent forensic psychiatrists who had no connection to my family, my city, or my medical history. The results were registered with a public notary. My prefrontal cortex function, my executive reasoning, my memory retention, all of it tested at levels that exceeded the average performance of a healthy 40-year-old. I am not declining. I am not fragile. I am not confused. I am a woman whose mind has been sharpened by 80 years of surviving a world that wanted her to disappear. And I have the notarized, court-admissible documentation to prove it. Dr. Thorne, when I contacted him directly and informed him that I was preparing a formal complaint to the State Medical Board for collusion and diagnostic fraud, resigned from my son's little project within the hour. He did not even argue. He knew exactly what he had done, and he knew that a malpractice investigation would end his concierge practice faster than my son's startups fail. And then came the day. I invited Arthur Jr. and Eleanor to lunch at my home, in my library. The room lined floor to ceiling with first editions and the original works that Eleanor had already appraised for auction. They walked in carrying their folder of legal documents, smiling, believing they were about to close the deal on their mother's autonomy. I was seated behind my oak desk. The iPad was in the center of the table, with the funeral quote printed on letterhead beside it. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I did not give them the satisfaction of my pain. I slid the Mayo Clinic dossier across the desk and watched their faces collapse as they read 3 independent psychiatric evaluations, confirming that I am sharper than both of them combined. And then I told them what I had done the night before. If you are done being someone's doormat, if you are done pretending that the people who smile at your table are not counting the days until you are under it, type strength in the comments right now, because what I am about to tell you is the move that changed everything. I rewrote my will. The new document contains a provision that I call the poison pill. It is elegant, it is legal, and it is absolute. If Arthur Jr., Eleanor, or any member of my family attempts to file for interdiction, seeks a clinical guardianship order, or tries to access any of my financial accounts before my natural death, their share of my estate is automatically and irrevocably reduced to 0. Not reduced, not diminished, erased. Every dollar, every property, every stock, every piece of art will be transferred in its entirety to a historically Black university endowment fund that will educate the next generation of Black children who will never have to beg their families for the respect they earned. I handed Arthur Jr. the printed funeral quote from his own wife's iPad and told him to keep it as a souvenir because it is the only thing of mine he will ever hold. Eleanor's face went white, not with shame, with the realization that she had been outmaneuvered by the woman she had already mentally buried. Arthur Jr. could not look at me, not because he was sorry, because he had lost. And losing is the only language that moves people who stopped loving you the moment they started counting your money. Now here is the secret I promised you at the beginning. The weapon that saved me was not the Mayo Clinic report. It was not the rewritten will. It was not even the discovery of the iPad. The weapon that saved me is the same weapon that most of you refuse to pick up because you think it makes you cold or mean or unloving. The weapon is strategic silence. I said nothing for 7 days. I did not confront. I did not accuse. I did not give Arthur Jr. the chance to rehearse an excuse or Eleanor the opportunity to spin a story. I moved in total darkness while they believed I was sitting in my chair, fading quietly into irrelevance. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the loaded chamber. And when I finally spoke, every word was a bullet that had been aimed for a week. You lose your power the moment you react. act. You gain your power the moment you plan. And the distance between those two things is the distance between being buried by your family and burying their ambitions with a single legal document. I am not telling you this story so you will feel sorry for me. I am telling you this because right now, tonight, someone in your family is doing arithmetic with your life. Someone who kissed you last Thanksgiving is quietly researching what your house is worth. Someone who calls you every Sunday is waiting for you to slip, to slow down, to show a crack they can widen into a legal argument for your incompetence. And if you are black, the system will help them do it. It will provide the doctors, the judges, the paperwork, and the precedent. Your only defense is to be so ruthlessly prepared that when they come for you, and they will come, you are already 3 moves ahead, and the board is set in your favor. I maintain my body with the same precision I maintain my portfolio. My cells are not negotiable. I flood them with compounds that repair what time tries to take. I train my bones and muscles against the osteoporosis that this world expects from a woman my age, and I keep my adrenal system regulated so that no betrayal, no matter how personal, can trigger the collapse they are betting on. Arthur Jr. drinks expensive liquor and carries the stress of his failures in every cell of his body, shortening his own timeline while he waits for mine to end. The irony would be poetic if it were not so pathetic. I will outlive his patience. I will outlive his schemes. And when I do finally leave this earth, it will be on my schedule, not his. And the only people who will benefit are strangers who earned it by being brilliant, not related. Lock your mouth. Lock your numbers, lock your legacy, and if someone in your bloodline has already started their calculations, understand that you are not powerless, you are uninformed, and that ends now. Comment below with the most ruthless thing a family member has done the moment they smelled your money, or keep pretending that those smiles at your dinner table are free.